Welcome to Consultation Room Podcast.
Welcome back to another burning question episode. Now, today's episode is about a very little bottle that most of us only think about when packing for a holiday. Something simple, everyday, and often overlooked that could actually have a very massive impact on your future health. Are we ready to find out, Steph?
Yes, I'm quite interested, isn't it?
Yes. I've got a series of questions I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
Because this is something I'm actually very passionate about. And yeah, I hope you'll pass these questions, because if not, I think we'll be going shopping, next weekend.
Dear. I'm a bit worried.
We need to top up on some of these things. You're going on holiday somewhere nice, exotic, hot, lovely. What are the things you're packing in your toiletries bag? What are the things you're taking with you?
Okay. So when it comes to toiletries, on holiday, you definitely need your moisturizer, your deodorant, your toothpaste, toothbrush, sponge, shower gel. Somewhere exotic. If it's probably somewhere sunny, you probably need like sunscreen. What else? Oof. Don't know. I'm a bit worried because I don't know if I'm giving the right answers. So
Okay, so you've got all your bits. So how I always look at it when I'm packing for holiday is when I get up, what do I need? I need to brush my teeth. So toothbrush, toothpaste. I need to shower. Do I have my body wash and my sponge, and then I need to, wipe down and moisturize. Do I have my moisturizer? Do I have my skincare? All of that. That's how I pack. Now, one thing you said actually caught me a little off guard. And I think that's why I thought this is actually a conversation for a burning question.
Okay.
So you said sunscreen if it's somewhere sunny. So my question to you, Steph, and I think we've actually had this conversation before because of a lot of stereotype when it comes to it. So sunscreen. How are we applying sunscreen? We're on holiday. How are we applying sunscreen?
I'm not gonna lie to you yet.
Good. I like this. Honesty is the key to future health.
I'm not gonna lie to you. If the sunscreen is not my moisturizer yet, I don't really go out of my way to actually get a sunscreen. I'm one of those, that don't use sunscreen. Yeah.
Okay,
so,
good.
It has to be my moisturizer. Yeah.
Oh, good. I mean, I am glad we're actually having a very honest, candid conversation, because that's the thing. I think most people are exactly the same. And I used to be exactly the same. I used to say, if my moisturizer doesn't have SPF, what's the point? Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, I've moisturized, and my skin is acting as a shield. So why do I need it? Right? So that is what most people actually think. And again, it's just one extra thing you have to carry with you. And if you think about it, most of the time when you're traveling, let's say you have just a hand luggage, right? You have to fit everything. Well, now they've changed the rules, but you would have to fit everything in a small plastic, bag. And sunscreen is the last thing you're putting in there, right? If you go through security and they say you've got way too many fluids, what are you chucking? Sunscreen. Exactly. But that should be the one thing you don't throw away.
I know.
Now, I used to be exactly like that. Like, sunscreen was like the last of my worries. The least of my worries.
When it comes to Black people, we just feel like because you have like melanated skin, so you don't really need sunscreen. So that's like the least of our problems,
Exactly. But again, that
it's
should be one. Exactly. That should be one of the main concerns, when it comes to skin, because let's be honest, the skin is the largest organ of the body, and it's the one thing like you can do so little to protect. When we say moisturize, you've got dry skin, you got ashy skin. What we all say as Black people, make sure you're moisturizing. This should be us saying moisturizing sunscreen. It's not in our vocabulary. I can guarantee you my mom has never Never use
Oh yeah,
sunscreen.
definitely. Yeah. Ask one of my aunties, they're like, what's that?
Mm.
It's not something that you hear in like a black household.
Like education needs to be done on that, and
Yeah.
people need to be educated on sunscreen and the
Yeah.
uses for it, and the the reasons why you actually need it, and
Mm.
why it actually is more beneficial to use sunscreen than
Yeah.
it is to not use it, or like basically the harms of not using sunscreen. So what about your kids? Do you ever use sunscreen with your kids?
Again, it's the same, yeah. I know I should. I think there was one time we were going on holiday and
Yeah.
I did buy it for them, and that
Mm-hmm.
was it. But on a normal basis, no,
Yeah.
I don't put it on them. I know.
Okay.
I don't put it on them.
Okay. What about your husband? Does he use
Mm,
sunscreen?
no. If I'm not
Okay.
using it, he's not.
Mm-hmm.
We use the same moisturizer.
Okay. So when
Yeah.
you run out of moisturizer, you're the one buying moisturizer, and that's about it.
Mm, yeah.
Okay. 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 Now, do you understand SPF numbers to start with?
No, I actually don't, I know there's SPF 15, SPF 30. I don't know
Uh-huh.
which one I should be using. Like, I've actually not
Mm-hmm.
looked at it to actually educate myself. Okay, there's the SPF you need. I'm not sure if it's
Yes.
kids that they need a lower one and then adult
Mm.
needs a higher one. I'm not too sure. Yeah. I
Okay.
need to
Okay.
educate myself. Educate me,
Mm.
Trudy.
Okay, I've got you. I've got you. Now,
Yeah.
SPF numbers actually tell you how long the sun's UV radiation would take to
Mm.
redden your skin when using the product as directed versus the amount it would take without any sunscreen. Do you get that?
Okay.
So, SPF 15, it would take
Mm-hmm.
15 minutes longer to burn if you were to use then okay, so 15 SPF 15, it would take 15 minutes longer to burn if you're using SPF 15. So normally you would burn, but then, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
after 5 minutes, but SPF 15 minutes
10
longer.
minutes. Okay.
So that's about 20 minutes, if that makes sense.
Mm. Mm.
If you burn within 5 minutes, that's what I'm just going by. Or if you burn within
Mm-hmm.
half an hour, it will take about 45 minutes because it takes that extra. Basically, it
Mm.
protects you that extra,
For
if you know what I
extra
mean.
15 minutes.
15
Yes.
minutes. SPF 30,
Yes.
extra 30 minutes. SPF
Mm.
50, extra 50 minutes. Now,
Mm.
the most common sunscreens are actually SPF 30 and SPF 50. That's what most people go for. Now, SPF 30 normally allows about 3% of UVB rays to basically get into the skin. So 3%.
Okay.
And SPF 50 allows about 2% of the rays through the skin. Now, if you think about these numbers, it doesn't seem like that big a deal, right? Like 2%, 3%.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the same.
It's,
But if you actually really go, deeper into this, SPF 30 would normally allow about 50% more UV radiation onto the skin than SPF 50.
okay.
That means you're basically allowing 50% more UV radiation
More
than SPF
UV.
50.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I
Yes.
see.
Uh-huh. So you might have a question. How exactly does sunscreen work? Right? Because what do you mean? Like, well, you could moisturize. So what does sunscreen do?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, yeah. What's the difference between sunscreen and normal moisturizers,
Exactly. Now I've got you. So sunscreen actually prevents UV rays from damaging the skin. And we
Okay.
as we have said, there is about, it's the largest organ of the body. So it covers literally your whole entire body. So you can imagine, it's because it's so exposed, you can very easily damage the skin, and sunscreen prevents UV rays from doing that. So there is two different types of ingredients. There's, when it comes to sunscreens, there's physical blockers and there's chemical
Okay.
absorbers. Now, what's the difference? Well, physical blockers, these normally have minerals like titanium oxide, zinc oxide, that basically sit on the skin and reflect UV rays away. They kind of act like a shield or a mirror.
Okay.
Yeah. So when the UV rays are hitting the skin, reflected back. That's how they protect the skin. So sometimes you might actually see this being advertised as sunblock. When people are saying, I've got sunblock on, this is what they're talking about. They're talking about physical blockers, which have got these minerals. Or some people might even call them mineral sunscreens. So if you're going to the shop and you're looking for different kinds, and then they say this is sunblock / mineral sunscreen, that's exactly what they're talking about. Basically, they work by sort of reflecting the UV rays away, almost like a mirror.
Yeah. Okay.
And then there is the chemical absorbers, which basically chemical sunscreen ingredients form a thin protective film that absorbs UV radiation before penetrating into skin. Now, these are sometimes actually called organic sunscreens.
Okay.
To get it. So one of them will reflect the UV rays. Exactly. This other one will absorb it, so it's not damaging the skin. So it's almost like it's got like a sponge. Yes. So it works like that. So that is the difference between the two. Now, which one is better, you might ask? Well,
I'm thinking it might be the block, because what I understand from this, if the chemical one is absorbing the UV light, it still stays on your skin, right? So until you wash it, it's still on your skin, or that's what I'm grasping from what you've explained.
To be fair, both of them will still be on your skin, because it's not like this one is absorbed. It still forms that layer, if you think about it. The blocker, but
but the sunblock is reflecting the UV like back into the atmosphere. Like that's how that's
so. You mean like the UV will still be on your skin? Okay.
Right.
Well, I suppose maybe by the time it gets to the skin, it's absorbed by this cream. So if you're washing off, you're washing off everything. I think that's the difference. I'll have to speak to the scientists and see what they say. But no, I get what you mean. The other one reflects the UV rays, so it's like no UV rays here. As the organic sunscreens are like absorbing it and taking it all in. So you might be right. And you're not wrong. Okay. So there is pros and cons to both the blockers and the minerals. As usual, there's going to be pros and cons to a lot of things. Now, starting with the physical blockers, because of how they work, they don't actually cause any itching, any stinging, any allergic reactions, because the ingredients that they have and the way they work, they just, because they're causing that sort of blocking and reflecting back out, they don't actually have the ingredient that causes that stinging, that irritation, the allergic sort of irritation. So sometimes, I don't know about you, but I've used sunscreen on my face sometimes, and oh my god, I could not stop crying because it was really irritating. Exactly. But the unfortunate thing is, most of these sunscreens, the blockers, they are white. When they say, "Oh, you've got this white," most
white ashy skin.
Exactly, ashy. The ashiness, the white. Basically the whiteness that comes with sunscreens. This is the blockers. So the blockers will cause this, and then they can be also greasy. So they can be greasy and cause that whiteness because of what they've got and the way they work.
Okay.
Whereas the organic sunscreens, they are clear and easy to apply, but they are likely to cause irritation and sort of allergic irritation, stinging, all of that, because just what they've got inside and how they work.
Okay.
So if you ask me, I would actually go for the blockers.
Yeah, same here.
Yes. But the good thing is, most sunscreens nowadays actually have both of this. It's almost like they have used both of the ingredients from these two kinds of sunscreens. just to get sort of like a better product, if I may. So this is just to maximize, of course, the benefits of sunscreen, and also reduce the downsides, because no one wants the ashiness when you're using sunscreen. So can you imagine you're on holiday and you're trying to just protect your skin, and you've got this white, the white castness of a sunscreen. No one wants that. So they have, I suppose the manufacturers have come into an understanding that, okay, we can work with both of these and make one, or at least make a sunscreen that has got both the organic minerals, the organic compounds that help with sort of absorbing the UV rays, as well as these minerals that help with reflection, so that they work together. And that way, if you think about it, it's like a double whammy. It's good. It's like it's able to reflect, and anything that's not able to reflect is absorbed, if you know what I mean.
It's true. You get the double protection.
Exactly. Now, we're talking about UV rays. You always look for anything that says maybe like UV protection, right? Right. Now, there is two types. There's UVB and UVA. Do you know the difference?
No.
Okay. So UV light, which is also known as ultraviolet light, is actually invisible to the human eye. This is because it actually has a shorter wavelength than the light that we actually see. So, right now we are recording and there's a light shining on us. We can see this light, right? So we know there's a light shining on us. Unfortunately, UV light you can't really see with the naked eye, because it doesn't have, it has a shorter wavelength. It doesn't have the same wavelength as the light we can normally see. So this is what is an ultraviolet light. Now, as I said, there is two types. There's UVB and UVA. Now, let's break it down.
Okay.
UVB is actually what causes sunburn, which then causes skin cancer. UVB, okay? And basically, the sunscreen number refers to the amount of UVB protection it provides. So if, let's say, it says SPF 30, it's protecting against the UVB. So it's the number of this number is referring to the UVB light. When I said 15, 30, 50. Exactly. Yes. Talk about UVB. So again, we're just going to repeat that so we know what we're talking about here. UVB is about, preventing from sunburn, preventing from cancer. Yes. Okay. Good. Class is in session. Yes. And there is UVA. UVA is actually what causes skin damage that leads to tanning, as well as skin aging and wrinkles. That is UVA. So there was this photo that was going around, and there was a woman who has used sunscreen all her life, every single day, all her life. And her skin, I think she was in her 70s. Her skin looked beautiful, like flawless, wrinkles, not as many wrinkles. The aging is almost like beautifully aged, skin. And you could see that there was not any, normally when the skin is damaged from sort of UV lights, you can see almost like the dots, like the dots from the light. You can normally see that on skin. No, that was not the case. But guess what she forgot to do?
What?
She forgot to apply sunscreen on her neck.
Oh no.
So her neck looked 90 years old.
No.
Her face looked 50 years old.
Wow.
Yes.
At least it made us see that the true effectiveness of the sunscreen,
Exactly.
I know I'm laughing, but yeah. Okay.
No.
That's really good.
It's true. I feel like sometimes without seeing some of these things, it's hard to know is it really necessary? Is it really helpful? I've got some statistics for you. I'm going to ask you questions and then we'll go to statistics just to see if what you understand about sunscreen is correct or not.
Okay.
The first one, men use more sunscreen than women.
That's a lie.
So unfortunately, men use less sunscreen than women.
Even to moisturize, these men, they don't even moisturize properly, yet alone like sunscreen. Come on.
That's exactly it. And I feel like it depends on the woman as well.
Yeah,
If
it's
the woman
true.
is using it, he might use it.
Yeah.
If the woman is not using it, no chance will the man use
Listen,
it.
even with normal moisturizer, even if the ladies use it, the moisturizer will be there, but the man will not even moisturize properly. Or
Exactly.
they may moisturize the places that's essential, like their face, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Nowhere else that nobody can
Exactly.
see.
That is actually true. That is
Mhm.
actually true. I have seen men with like really ashy feet, but you look at their
Exactly.
face and you're
It's
like, wow,
glistening.
there's a woman
Yes.
behind this. But
Yes.
did the woman not tell him to moisturize his feet?
No. They're in a hurry, yeah. So they just do their face. Yeah. People are just gonna stare at my face. That's what I need to do. That's it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, more women actually use sunscreen than men for
Yeah.
reasons we have just mentioned. Do you think that if women
Yeah.
were to use more sunscreen, more men would use sunscreen?
Yeah, definitely. I think they will. Because at the end of the day, yeah, we are the ones that like drive these like skincare routine, all of that. So
Yes.
once we have those products there, I think yeah, the men will use it.
Yeah.
About applying it everywhere, that I'm not sure, but they will use it. They will apply it somewhere, but not the whole body. Yeah, but yeah. So
Okay.
far as the
No,
woman uses it, the man will use it. Yeah.
that is correct.
Mm-hmm.
My next question is what percentage of adults in the UK would you say use sunscreen?
Hmm. I'm hoping I'm gonna put faith in us and maybe go with over 50%. So maybe like 60, 70? No?
On a daily basis. Okay. I like that you have faith in humanity, but humanity has disappointed.
Oh no.
So in the UK, only about 22% of UK adults actually use SPF daily.
Wow.
And a significant 55% use sunscreen when it's sunny, and 14% never use it at all. I'm thinking this is mostly black people.
I think so too.
Yeah. So 50%. I mean, you are correct. When it's sunny, at least 50. Over 50% will use sunscreen. But on a daily basis, only 22% of UK adults use sunscreen. And again, if the adults are not using sunscreens, the children are not going to be using sunscreen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Next question. What percentage do you think normally apply it before going out, and what percentage just carry it and then just apply it whenever they need it? Like say in the summer.
In the summer, they're definitely not carrying it around. Very low percentage for that. Probably like 30%, I would put. People that apply it before going out, maybe a high percentage of people, like 75%.
Okay, you're not far off. So
Yeah.
87% actually carry it with them to reapply throughout the day, and 60% apply it before going out in the sun, and then they just don't reapply it basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. The last one of the questions before I do a collective statistics. What would you say is the percentage of UK adults that are actually concerned about their health enough to use sunscreen?
Very low. Because the fact that a lot of us are not using it, again, I'm split between like 50% or lower.
Okay.
Maybe like 40%.
Oh, you're not far off. I feel like you've been reading on sunscreens.
No, not at all.
So, okay, good for you. So approximately 50% of UK adults actually consider sunscreen too expensive, with 10% stating that they don't use it due to the cost. But
I see.
So when I said they are concerned about it, it's because they actually have looked it up and they're like, it might be too expensive. But they know that they need it. but they don't really use it because they think it's too expensive. And then 10%
Okay.
just don't use it due to cost. So 10% are like,
Okay.
no, I'm not buying that. It's too costly. Yes.
I kind of like understand that because sometimes you go to the shop here, just a little tube here, it's so expensive. You're like, "Oh, how is this gonna last me?" So yeah, I
Exactly.
do understand. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
sunscreen, let's be honest, is not a very cheap thing, but it's
Mm-mm.
definitely cheaper than skin cancer. So I think we should invest in sunscreen.
Yeah.
Now, some of the other statistics was on sort of application habits. So we have said 60% apply before going out, 30% carry it with them, but only a third of UK adults actually take action to protect themselves from the sun while in their garden or outdoor spaces, whereas 2/3 are just like, whatever, like it is what it is. And normally, every year, about 30% of UK adults have actually reported experiencing sunburn in the past year. In the year, in the past year, so roughly it's been around 30% on average. And these normally would highlight the need for better sun protection because 30% is not a small number. So if you
It's
think
not.
about any
Yeah.
population, for instance, 30% of, I don't know, a billion people is a lot of people, and people getting sunburn like that is actually not good.
Yeah.
And only 55% of people, well, in this survey that was done, are aware that UVA rays are the leading cause of premature skin aging. Now, I bet you didn't know that either, because
No.
there you go, exactly, because it's not something that we're educated on. It's not something that
No.
is promoted. They just say sunscreen. We don't
Yeah.
know what we're using, what is in this sunscreen. So there is UVB, which we talked about, of course, being the, what causes skin damage, then, causes skin cancer. And then UVA is what causes the wrinkles, the aging. But no one talks about this. No one knows these things. I'll be honest, until I started researching sunscreen, I didn't know about this either.
Yeah.
So that is the statistics when it comes to sunscreen.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads us to the next question. Do you think sunscreen is enough?
I don't think so, because at the end of the day, the way you've explained it, like the SPF 15, SPF 30, SPF 50, it's
Yeah.
just for a limited time. So you have to like keep applying it to get that full protection. And if someone does not does not apply it all the time, it's like you're not fully protected. So you need to probably wear like layers as well to help you,
Yes.
deflect that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. I'm glad that is what you think.
okay.
Yes. That is correct. Sunscreen or SPF is not enough. As we said, different sunscreens. So SPF 30 will give you that extra 30 minutes that you can be in the sun without burn.
Yeah.
SPF 50 will give you an extra 50 minutes, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that is enough. And it also doesn't necessarily mean that because you have it on, you can stay out there for 50 minutes. Okay. And that is a misconception that people have. So people have some sort of false security when it comes to SPF. Like they think, oh, I've got SPF, I can stay out in the sun today, or I can reapply it, it's fine. No, that is not the case. So basically, people tend to think that, especially when they have SPF 50, that they are protected fully and they can stay out in the sun longer. But what that means is you actually have more UV exposure. That means more UV damage. And that kind of defeats the purpose. So the purpose of SPF is not to give you that, that go ahead to go in the sun and be out there for an hour.
The whole day.
Exactly, the whole day. No, even when you're like sunbathing or like when you're just out and about, it's very, very important to still cover up because, as we said, there is going to be that exposure to UV light, whether it's UVA or UVB. There's going to be that exposure, and that means there's likelihood of more of UV damage, like more UV damage. So no, that is correct. It is not enough to just have sunscreen, to just have SPF. clothing is very, very important. So normally also people with certain conditions, so people will have maybe a high risk of skin cancer, maybe there's a family history of skin cancer, or maybe any genetic diseases like albinism or xenoderm pigmentosum.
Wow.
I don't know what that
What a
means. I think
name.
that's something to do with pigment, to do with the pigment. I think it's when maybe the pigment is fading. But if you have these kind of conditions, it's very, very important to use SPF 50 and higher, and also to have protective clothing. And also certain people who have immune diseases, immunocompromised conditions, or even who are on therapy, I think is very, very important as well, because
even some patients on like certain medications as well, which the medications make their skin a lot more sensitive to the sun as well, such as like amiodarone and stuff. You need to
doxycycline, when you're on certain medications, honestly, when it says on the label avoid sun exposure, please. Avoid, because I've actually had this question. They've said, I'm on this tablet, why should I avoid sun exposure? Was this on purpose? Was this supposed to be on my label? I'm like, yes, because it makes your skin. No, they don't. They think, what is going on? It's because some of these drugs make your skin more sensitive, and when your skin is more sensitive, it's sensitive to UV radiation. So it's best to avoid exposure. And also, if maybe you're out and about, just wear extra clothing. What I always say is a hat is always a good idea. Long sleeve is always a good idea. And also sunglasses. I can't emphasize on that enough. Sunglasses with proper UV protection. Don't just go to Primark and get your sunglasses, okay? They don't have UV protection, okay? So if it's for vibes and for, try to look
cool,
like exactly, by all means, but if it's for protection, UV protection, please get proper sunglasses with UV protection. Most of the sunglasses will normally say on the frames, like inside, they will say if they have any UV protection. And with most sunglasses with UV protection, actually, I wouldn't recommend it, and I don't recommend it, but you can actually look at the sun without feeling like, oh my God, that is burning. They have that protection. So it's very, very important. Now, how often would you say one should apply sunscreen? So we now know that you should apply sunscreen all the time, but how often, is there a need to reapply, do you say?
Yeah, like with the way you've explained the way it works, it depends. So if you're outdoor, I feel like you need to be applying it as often as you can. So let's say, for instance, if it's the SP50 you have on, maybe every hour you need to be applying it, or so,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You're not far off. That's great. So the Skin Cancer Foundation actually recommends that people should first of all use water-resistant sunscreens. And it doesn't necessarily mean that this sunscreen, if you go in the water, you don't need to reapply. No, it's just water resistant. So it's not gonna, it's not gonna wash off as easily as maybe other sunscreens. And also it's very, very important to also use broad spectrum sunscreens. Now, these are sunscreens that will protect you from both UVA and UVB. But also what they recommend is that you apply sunscreen 30 minutes before going outside, like into the sun, and every 2 hours after, especially if you've been swimming or you've been sweating, because you basically sweat it off. So it's best to reapply. So they say at least every 2 hours. By all means, guys, if you want to apply every hour, go for it. But it should be at least every 2 hours. So okay. We're learning. I like this.
And does it depend on like the SPF? Because if it's SPF 15, do you need to apply it a lot more? And
of course. Yeah, because as we said, the 15, it actually determines how long the skin will take to burn. So SPF 15 versus SPF 50, SPF 50 is better in terms of it protecting you longer as opposed to SPF 15. So by all means, but this is just an average sort of like a rule of thumb, every 2 hours at least you should be reapplying. If you maybe are trying to reapply as least as possible, at least every 2 hours you should be reapplying it. But if I'm wearing SPF 15, and okay, so this is how I look at it. If you're wearing SPF 15 on a daily basis, maybe that's not too bad. Like you can reapply, like, I don't know, half a day you can reapply or whatever. But if you're wearing, say, SPF 30 and you've just, got in your car, you've just driven to get brunch with some friends, so there's not too much exposure as such, then you could get away with reapplying it every 2 hours, if you know what I mean. So it depends on how much exposure there is, especially if you're, say, swimming. If you've applied SPF and you've gone swimming, of course, if it's SPF 30, after that you should really reapply it because you have, washed it off. So it does depend what you're doing, I would say.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, so when it comes to sunscreen, of course, there's the sprays, there's the creams, and all kinds now. There's powder, all of that.
Yeah.
What do you think is the best?
I'm not sure. What I've normally used is like the cream.
Okay.
I have bought the spray in the past, but I'm not really too keen on that one. I prefer the cream because I use it as like a moisturizer.
Moisturizer,
But
okay.
yeah, I wouldn't really go with the powder. It's just a bit weird.
Okay, no, by all means. I mean, I think sometimes the powder, I think you maybe mix it with something. I don't know. I've never actually used the powder. I know there's powder SPF or powder sunscreens out there. Don't ask me how to use it, okay? Do your Googles or speak to your manufacturers, but I don't know. But I have also used lotions, creams, and sprays.
Yeah.
I have all three, and I actually use all three all the time. But they say lotions or creams are best. Now, the reason for that is because with lotions and creams, you should be able to see where you're applying it. Okay. So like you've put some on your hand and you've applied it on your arm. You can see that you've kind of like touched all over. You've basically touched every single part of the arm. Whereas with sprays, if you think about it, you spray, you don't know if you've spread it evenly to start with. So you might have missed some spots when it comes to sprays. And also, let's be honest, sometimes if, let's say, you're spraying the neck, you might like spray into your eye, might irritate your eye and things like that. Or you might even like just inhale it. You might inhale some of these things when you're spraying it. So it's not recommended to maybe use the spray one, just for simplicity of things. So they say the creams and the lotions are the best.
Yeah, I prefer the creams,
Okay. Now, so far, what are we getting, Steph? So we're getting water resistant.
Yes.
SPF 30 and above, maybe?
Yes, definitely.
Broad spectrum. Oh, good. Okay. I'm just glad we're learning something.
Yeah.
Now, I've got a question for you. Would you say that sunscreen is safe?
Yes, I believe so because I mean, like, I've not heard anything bad, so I believe they are. Unless there's something else that I'm sure there is. There always is, isn't it?
I mean, people have said all kinds.
Okay. I mean, I can't think of what can be wrong with it, but it's just a moisturizer that is basically helping us, protecting our skin. So I don't know what it could be doing. That could be wrong. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, there has been concerns, as always. There's been concerns about whether sunscreens are safe, whether the ingredients in sunscreens are safe, whether using sunscreen on top of the skin layer and, basically covering the skin, if that is safe. Because people say, the sun is energy giving. The sun, it gives you that vitamin D. The sun is good for you. So they say basically you using sunscreen, you're actually blocking the goodness of the sun.
Okay.
But my question to you is, do you know what global warming is? Do you know the ozone layer is damaged? Because if you don't, sorry to break it down, but it is the case.
It is, yeah.
Exactly. So I feel like maybe, I don't know, maybe 100 years ago, the sun was safer.
Yeah.
But now with, of course, the ozone layer being damaged and, with global warming and all of this, it's maybe not as safe to just be out there without any self-protection on your skin because of this UV UV radiation, UV light. Sorry, yeah, exactly. So the benefits outweigh the risk. So if there's any risk with using sunscreens, there's more benefits. There is benefits that sunscreen will protect you from skin cancer, from aging, from wrinkles, from skin damage. So I would say it is safe. And when should you wear a skin sunscreens? When would you say you should wear sunscreen?
All the time.
That's true.
We've debunked that one. It shouldn't just be on sunny days.
Exactly. So sunscreen should be worn all year round. And this is another myth that people have. And I actually wear sunscreen every single day. Every single day. At least on my face. I won't lie. On my face I do. Because let's say in the winter, I am not really exposed. I'm wearing I'm wearing long sleeve, I'm wearing trousers, most of the time, or tights, under skirts and dresses. So I'm not really exposed. But on my face in the winter, with no fail, Steph, sunscreen. Yes. So yes, that is correct. Sunscreen should be worn all year round. It should not just be worn during the summer, although people think that that it should only be worn during the summer. But of course, during summer, you should use it
a lot more
liberally.
often.
You should use it with that. Exactly. So during the summer, by all means, use it extra, but you should wear it all year round. One thing people don't realize is you can actually get radiation when it's raining, when it's wet, when you're going skiing.
Okay.
Exactly. Do you know why? Because water and snow are such good mediums for UV light to reflect. So if you think about it, water reflection. So you're actually likely to get skin damage from that reflection from the UV light. It could be a rainy day, but the sun still comes out. That's one thing. The sun never fails to come out. So the sun will come out. It's just we don't see it. So it will still produce the UV rays, and this can reflect on the water and cause radiation, or they can reflect on snow and cause radiation. That's why when you go skiing, you have to wear those goggles.
That makes sense now. Okay.
Exactly. It's because you can get very bad radiation in your eyes, sunburn in your eyes. So it's very, very important when it's snowing, when you're going skiing, when, if you live near a lake in the winter, please wear your sunscreen because of that radiation. Exactly. Okay. So we have talked about how else you can protect your skin, which is sort of like wearing clothing to protect your skin. But also in the summer, like now, the sun is out, and I think this year we have actually, so far we've experienced more sun than we did last year. So far, and it's not even the peak of summer. So that means we're gonna have a good summer, guys. Okay, I am predicting it. I am calling it. We're having a good summer. Now, what should you do? Exactly. It's going to be good summer in the UK. We are having a lovely summer. So what I would recommend is stay out of the sun during the peak hours. So that's when the sun is, shiniest. The sun is hottest. So that's normally between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. During these times, don't be going out there and sunbathing and burning yourself and causing skin cancer. Okay, stay out of direct. By all means, you can go about, do your normal bits, but just avoid that direct exposure. That's very important. Yeah, and of course, protective clothing. But I think it's very, very important to just avoid the sun during these hours. Yeah, and I think that's about it. One last question I have for you, Steph. Now, do you think that, now that we have talked about, of course, Black people also needing as much sunscreen as any other skin, would you say that Black people don't get damaged or get less damaged? Would you say that?
No. It's so weird, I know a lot of Black people don't use like sunscreen, but yet I don't think we are affected as much, or maybe it's not reported, but I feel like a lot of like non-melanated skin types, do get
Yes.
more like sun damage than we do. Like you hardly hear that like a black person has got any like sun damage or something. So I don't know if it's because it's not recorded that often, or
Okay.
we just don't report it. But yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. But from what like, even my family, like my aunties, my grandma, they've never used
Yes.
it, and their skin has been good. Like, a lot of
Yeah.
black people, they say black don't crack. Like, even when they're older, they still have like really good skin. And
Yes.
I don't think they've been using like sunscreen their whole life. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe there is something about our skin that, protect us
Yeah.
from like the
Yeah.
sun.
Nice.
Yeah.
No, I get that. I get that.
Mm.
I think you're right. I think it's not as reported, or at least any skin
Yeah.
damage is not as reported. But the
Yeah.
worst thing about that is, and I'll answer the question to what I asked you. Yes, we
Mm.
get less damage, but it doesn't mean we
Mm-hmm.
don't get any damage. So because of the melanin in our
Okay.
skin, it acts like a protective layer. It doesn't necessarily. It's
Mm-hmm.
not. Listen, this is not sunblock. Okay, and melanin does not mean you won't get any, you won't get
Okay.
any skin damage. You can get
Mm.
skin damage with excessive exposure. So it takes a bit longer for us to get
Mm.
sunburn than it would, say, someone who is of non-brown, non-black skin. But
Yeah.
maybe you are right. Maybe it's not as reported as much, or
Mm.
maybe we don't actually, because of that extra layer of protection,
Yeah.
we just don't really get as badly damaged for it to cause maybe
Okay.
like skin cancer. But if you
Mm.
think about it, with when it comes to like skin damage, sometimes you don't even, it's not like something you can see, and most people will probably put it down to like aging and
Mm.
just age, right? So you'll see someone with
Yeah.
like you see like the skin has like really like got a little bit, yeah, a little, it's age, like you can tell the
Yeah.
difference, and they'll be like, yeah, I'm just growing old. But maybe part of it is
Mm.
also that skin damage. So
Damage,
maybe we
yeah.
try to um almost like dismiss it and just say it's aging, but
Yeah.
maybe there's damage.
Mm.
Exactly. And let's be honest, black skin is not as well studied. Hence why I think this needs to be a conversation, or we need to also
Yeah.
study black skin. What does
Yeah.
skin damage look to me? And what does skin
Mm-hmm.
damage look or versus say to someone who looks different, maybe someone who's
Yeah.
Caucasian? Because I have been misdiagnosed when I had a skin condition, because it's not something that is known when it comes to my skin. So maybe that's also another case. But you are right. I think
Yeah.
it's maybe not reported enough because there's not
Yeah.
enough knowledge as to what that looks like.
Yeah. I agree.
Yes.
I agree. But
Okay.
regardless, we still need to protect our skin.
Yes. Yes. By all
Yes.
means. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
100%. Now,
Mm.
how much sunscreen should you use? I have a rule of thumb. It might be wrong. It might be
Mm-hmm.
right. But guys, I've made a video before about this. So basically what I normally say is, when it comes to your arms, one
Mm-hmm.
fingertip unit, so your index
Okay.
finger. So one fingertip
Mm-hmm.
unit that can be used for your arms. Two and a
Okay.
half can be used for your face and your neck. Four fingertip
Okay.
units can be used for your arms. And then
Mm-hmm.
8 fingertip units can be used for your legs and the rest of your
Okay.
body. So for your legs,
Mm.
for 8, for another 8 for the rest of your body. So that is how I
Okay.
go about it. If you want to go ahead and adapt this, by all means, go for it. If you know what you're doing and it's done you good, by all means. But this is what I would normally advise anyone who maybe is asking me about sunscreen. So I hope, Steph, you'll start using this.
Definitely. This is what I do. I sometimes buy it, use it, stop. I'm not a consistent user, so I think I need to be consistent with it. Yeah.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
just need to consistent. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
At least
I've
on your
learned.
face, especially on your face and your neck.
Yeah,
That's very, very
definitely.
important. Yes.
Yeah.
Don't forget your
Yeah,
neck,
definitely.
guys. Don't forget your neck. Don't be like that lady who was 70 with a
Oh.
90-year-old neck and a 50-year-old face. So,
Yeah. Okay.
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 So what's one thing when it comes to sunscreen that you will take away? And you better be careful about what you're saying, because I will haunt you if you're not.
Okay. I think the major one, which we've already mentioned, everyone needs to use a sunscreen at all
Yes.
times throughout the whole year. It's not just like sunny days that you need to use it.
Yeah.
And every type of skin needs to use it, okay? So all you
Yes.
melanated people thinking you don't need a sunscreen, please, we do need it. And I think
Exactly.
one thing I learned here, which I didn't know, the different types of like the different UV lights that you mentioned,
Yes.
UVA and UVB. I didn't know about that. And I also now know what the SPF 15, 13, 50 all means. Like, so
Yes.
thank you so much for that, Trudy.
Oh, good.
But this has been very, very educative. I have learned so much.
Good.
And it's literally opened my mind. I'm gonna be very consistent when it comes to using my SPF. Yeah, thank you so
Oh,
much
good.
for today.
Oh,
Yeah.
I am glad. I am glad. If there's one thing you can take away from this episode is just
Yeah.
don't rely on sunscreens. Sunscreens should be your go-to every day. You should use the sunscreens every day, but don't just rely on them. Protective clothing is very, very important. Make sure you're also reapplying if needed, because that's one thing that people don't do. And I would just say, as much as it's a very vital part of sun protection, using it the right way as well is important. And what some people actually do is, that might be the case for you, Steph, you have sunscreen from 5 years ago and maybe it's expired. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's toxic, but it might actually not protect you.
Okay.
Because this is very common, because you buy sunscreen and you're like, I'm going to use it, and then you just don't even bother. So
Leave it
you
there.
have it for years. Exactly. You have it for years and years and years, and it might be expired. So it might actually not protect you. It might not necessarily do any damage to your skin, but it just might not protect you. So it's very important to also look at the expiry for you to get proper protection. But one thing that people need to do going forward is use sunscreen every day.
Yeah.
That is very important. I hope you've learned something from this episode. I hope you've enjoyed
I really
it.
did.
Yeah, I am so glad. I am so glad. So if anyone else has liked this episode, like, subscribe, and share this episode with your friends, with your loved ones, with your mother, with your father, especially if they don't use sunscreen. And we will see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in today. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember, a healthy chat is a step towards a healthy life.
If you have any topics you'd like us to discuss, drop us an email at consultationroompod@gmail.com. Our Instagram is @consultationroompod. See you next week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay blessed.